Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How's everybody doing today?
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
I feel like I'm super out of practice because we've been
All
listening
over
to classes all week instead of
instead of
being,
doing the one people what
yeah,
we're not who's listening to versus listening. Yeah,
it's been
it's
hard.
odd.
Yes.
I can't evidently talk either. We're in big trouble today, guys.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Yes, yes.
Hmm.
Yep. And I think StreamYard did an update because all of the settings were weird.
Everything was
So
weird when we
um,
opened up today, so that's always
hopefully,
fun as well. So hopefully
hopefully you
there's
can
no
hear us.
echoing or any of that good thing because they whole new list of microphones to choose from and all of that.
Yeah.
It didn't look like it normally does. So,
No. Or if it does, I'm really losing my mind.
which is a possibility. I mean, it's
Talking is harder than it should be, and we
it.
weren't the ones talking all day. Wow.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
good.
Thanks, Mom. All right. So today is what week are we in? We're
Week
in the
2.
12th. We're in week 2.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, week 2.
Yeah, because I wasn't here the first one.
No,
That was last week.
we did last.
That was
You
last
were
month.
here.
That was the 31st.
You're so yes. We did embroidery
I'm
last.
telling you, being out of town, it's just I don't know what's coming or
Yep.
going right now.
Last week we talked about.
We talked last week. I remember that, but the week before that, we didn't have one.
Right.
That's what messed me up.
Yes.
So, yes.
We just
So,
had our dime event.
yes, we did.
Yeah. So today is week 2 of National
Embroidery
Embroidery
month. So, who here likes to embroider?
Me. Yes.
So, let's dive in and start talking about what to do, what not to do, and of course, some of our favorite tools and things that we do that we find help make
Yeah.
our life easier when we're embroidering.
Yeah.
So
We do like a few hour chat about stabilizers every year. And we have OESD coming to do a stabilizer event in June. So
yes,
we won't cover all of the things.
this is going to be very broad stroke stabilizer.
Yes, in the hour, but we are going to talk about like our, I would say like the really, the most common things that people struggle with, like the things that we say pretty much every single day, and some of our favorite tools and products that we recommend basically every single day. And then if you guys have questions, feel
Pop
free
them up.
to pop those up,
Absolutely.
and we will do our best to answer those as we go. So I'm gonna plop the camera over on
Over
our
here.
table, and we have some goodies over
We do.
here.
We might have a couple goodies over here. So
Yeah.
we also have a new camera system. So it looks a little different than previous.
Yes.
You're not imagining things.
No.
And we are also new at figuring out where everything's at over here. So there are a whole lot of different things over here.
Gail is at quilt camp in Sebring, and she has Lois, Jane, and Pat with her. Hi, guys.
Hey, guys. Sounds like fun.
Yes.
We need to do something here. We keep talking about that and how fun it would be, and I'm not sure how that would work, but
we do need to do something.
We need to do something like that here. It would just be a lot of fun. So the big thing that I have here is a piece of fabric. So underneath my piece of fabric, I have, this happens to be a fusible no-show mesh. How do I know it's fusible? So that's probably one thing, is being able to tell your stabilizer what it is by looking.
Right.
And being able to tell when it's not got the original packaging on it, you know, is that the one I want or not? So one of the things that we hear a lot is, you know, do I really need to fuse?
Are there sales on embroidery items this month? There are sales on embroidery machines this month, and anybody who is part of our bag club, the Laboo bag group, will have some specials that are geared
towards that. We do still have some. It's dropped by a whole lot,
Right.
but we do still have some of the brother thread that we have put on sale for 60% off. There are still colors available. So if you want to check that out, that is still on sale, and that can be either shipped or picked up.
And it's online, so you can shop
Yep.
for the colors that are left.
Absolutely.
And we still have a good smattering of fabrics that are still 60% off.
Which are also
Online.
online. So I don't know if there we
you
go. See how there's a sheen to that? That shine is fusible.
Mhm.
So we definitely don't recommend having fusible in projects that aren't designed for them,
Right.
because a lot of the times we have to press something in our hoops.
Yep.
Or afterwards even, and then that fusible that's in there is going to activate, and then you're going to be like, I can't turn it, or I can't do something that I'm supposed to do. So can you use a fusible if that's all you have? Technically, yes.
Right.
But you need to be really, really careful about that.
Right. And we might have jumped the gun. Maybe if you don't know what stabilizer is basically the base of all embroidery. And you have to have some sort of version of that. So that's what we're talking about, is the stabilizer here.
That's what this guy is.
Yes.
And I can tell that it is no-show mesh versus a water-soluble mesh by the lines that are in that, instead of the dots.
Yes.
So if it's water-soluble, it's going to have little tiny dots or circles versus lines on there. So lines equals a no-show mesh.
Let me grab that
and
little
mesh.
thing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that one has all of it in it.
That'd be too easy.
So
this one does. Stabilizer. We definitely get the question of, do I actually have to stabilize? You all right over there?
It's tied. I thought it was going to be super easy.
Nope, fooled you.
Fooled me.
I totally forgot what I was saying.
Don't mind me for comedy relief.
Do I have to stabilize everything? When you are embroidering, you absolutely have to have a stabilizer, or you will not get the results that you're looking for. Sometimes there is a substitution for a stabilizer. For instance, if you're quilting or something like that, then you can use your batting in your sandwich as your stabilizer, but that usually has some scrim or something in it that's going to give you a little extra.
Is this a restroom?
It is.
So here we have water-soluble mesh. You can see the tiny little dots that are in that. That is how I can tell the difference. So they are very similar if you're just taking a quick glance, but you can have very, very bad results if you use the wrong one, because you want a stabilizer to stick around or you wanted it to go away. And if you happened to grab the wrong one on either of those situations, and they don't respond like you want them to. So it's very important that you can tell the difference between those.
I did a
lines versus water soluble.
Yeah, I did a lace project on no-show mesh once. It does not wash out.
It doesn't wash out even a little bit. It doesn't matter how hot that water gets. It's not going to go anywhere. What did I do? I was making samples for that little zippered pouch with all of the strings and threads and stuff through it. Yeah, I did one of those with no-show mesh instead of water soluble. Again, it didn't look quite like I expected it to when it was all done. It still worked, but it didn't work like it was supposed to for any a little bit. So stabilizer of some sort is number one.
Right. And we need it to go through the entire hoop because it has to be stable in order to stabilize the entire entirety of the fabric piece.
So if it's only yay big, and even if I fused it onto the back of my shirt,
right,
the shirt itself is going to be able to stretch here and on the outsides, which is going to allow for shifting in the hoop. So your stabilizer literally stabilizes whatever you have that you're stitching on to ensure that it's staying where you put it.
Yes.
And that it can absorb all of the needle hits that it's going to take dependent upon your design.
Yep. So tip number 1 is stabilize throughout the entirety of the hoop. Do not skimp on the stabilizer. It has to be larger than the inside of the hoop.
Okay, so that is extremely important. Whether you are hooping your project itself, whether it be a towel or a shirt, whatnot,
Right.
there's a lot of different opinions on that. There isn't necessarily a right or a wrong. It's literally a how you want to do things, and there is definitely going to be a little bit of variance in what you'll end up getting out. So there's a lot of different types of stabilizers.
To hoop or not to hoop?
To hoop or not to hoop, that is the question. So sometimes it's like, this design doesn't have that much going on. I know that I can float
Right.
my item or even stick my item and be fine.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen as often as we all want it to.
No.
So
my rule is if you can hoop it, hoop it.
absolutely. Agreed. All right. So what do you want to talk about next?
So let's talk about, so everybody has to start with stabilizer. And then the second problem that we have is hooping. So let's show them what we have. Like everybody's hoops, unless you're working with a commercial embroidery machine. So one that has like a free arm that we talked about last week that had multi-needles.
Yep.
Otherwise, it doesn't matter what brand of embroidery hoop you have.
The bottom
and the top, and they will be marked with something to designate which way the top of the hoop goes into the bottom of the hoop. Ours are designated with a little tiny, there we go, a little arrow. They kind of, they have to sort of kiss each other. Yep,
right there.
right there.
This is weird. Okay. So on a flatbed standard embroidery machine, your bottom hoop, you're going to want to place it on a flat surface. And for any of you that are thinking, yeah, I just use my lap. Yeah, your lap is not a flat surface.
Right.
Have we all done that at some point? Probably in a pinch, but definitely not ideal and not recommended.
No.
So find a flat surface. Now I have a beautiful flat surface here. You want to talk about this flat surface?
Yes. The flat matte surface that we have there is a non-slip, like a grippy pad.
Grippy grid is what
Yes.
this little baby is called.
And this is by OESD, and a couple different people make a version of this. But you can see that it's very clearly marked, which makes it easy for you to find like the center and help you with your placement. The other thing that it happens is one of the things that we struggle with when we're trying to hoop something is we need to kind of apply pressure downward. And what happens is we kind of apply the pressure and then we push and then it slides on us. So one of the things that won't happen when you use this is that when you shove on it, it's going to stay in place substantially better than it would if you were trying to do it any other way.
That doesn't really camera super well, but I'm pushing pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's sticking on this surface here. So I'm just going to line up my hoop center points with the center here. That'll also help me if I'm trying to get something slightly off center. Maybe I'm doing a towel.
Yep.
And I want, I have my rough crosshair, but I know that I want to be like 4 inches up from the bottom or something. I actually have that visual in front of me, which is really, really great. Your top piece, again, match that, in our case, arrow to arrow. This is actually in wrong.
Yep.
All right. So there is a right and a wrong to this. One thing that we actually do see often is upside down.
Yes.
So you want to not see this flat piece here. You need to have that be domed in, and you should be able to see that marking there when you're putting it in.
Yes.
So that is how you know which side is up, which side is down, all of that good stuff.
Yes.
So when we have our inner hoop, it's going to be adjustable, and the space that is going to be between the inside and the outside hoop is where you have to fit your sweatshirt, your towel, your whatever it happens to be. Could just be a piece of fabric. That one's really easy, right? So this screw here is going to give you the ability to open and close that space, to give you more room to fit something else in. All right, so what do we need to do next? So I can actually, I know it's probably not great on your camera, but maybe even a little bit in there. You can see those lines through the fabric. And I can actually use the line underneath to line up the crosshair that we have drawn. And I can actually use that. I can see enough to know that I am pretty darn close to center right now. So that is huge. Being
Yep.
able to do that without having to check 20
Mhm.
million times, is this line over here? Is that line over there?
Diane did not know that the inside hoop had a top and a bottom.
You'd be amazed how many other people didn't know that either.
Right.
So you're not alone.
Yep.
No judgment.
No.
So this is all just to help you out. So what we want to be able to do at first is to, what you call this, pretensioning, right?
I do it. Yep.
So, and you do that pretty much all the time?
I do.
So
I always find that no matter what I think, I never have the hoop really loose enough than I think. So then I really struggle. So I always just loosen it up an obnoxious amount.
all right.
And then I put my project in there. And then what I do is I tighten up the screw until it gets not like super duper tight, but tight enough where I still have a little bit of wiggle in the screw. This is how I avoid doing like the number 3 mistake, which is wanting my fabric to be so tight inside the hoop that I put it in and then I pull on it so that it makes it drum tight.
So if I have my screws now been retightened, so it's there, but it's not like tight as
Right.
it's not as tight as it possibly. I could get it tighter.
Right.
But what generally happens is if we're slightly off somewhere, which I did a really good job. It's not off. What we see and we hear a lot of people do is to keep things in position, they'll do this. And sometimes your stabilizer is fused and sometimes it isn't, but they tug. And by tugging, it starts to pull out of center.
Mm-hmm.
So I can get that nice and tight, but what am I doing to my fabric while I'm doing that?
Right.
So, you know, we all have probably done this without thinking about it.
Yep.
So, you know, pulling them towards each other, literally just holding the hoop and pulling out. Let me see if I can get a wrinkle in. It's a lot harder than it sounds. All right, so if I have bumps, right? So can you guys see that there's
Yep.
bumps, right? And obviously I don't want to stitch like that because
Right.
it's not going to. So instead of taking it out and putting it back in, this is where a lot of people just start tugging and pushing and pulling until they get it so smooth. Oh, that happens too. I've gotten so good at not doing this. I'm not good at it anymore. All right.
We're out of
So
practice.
I am, but I'm also way out of center. But so you can see I have pulled pretty much everything out,
Mm-hmm.
but I've also pulled my positioning. I was right on the money,
Right.
and I have also changed my center point.
Right.
That's not there. What I've also done is stretched all of this fabric
Mm-hmm.
to make it fit.
Right. So we know that fabric has straight of grain, and we know that fabric is rarely printed on the straight of grain. But everyone has probably experienced this at some point in time. You go to the store, you try on a pair of pants, you put them on, everything feels great, or a shirt, everything feels great. You go home, you wash it, you put it on, and it's like twisted. Like the inseam is no longer where it's supposed to be, or the
It's not
shirt
going straight down. It's not going
right.
straight with your body. It's now crooked on your body.
Yes.
And it wasn't like that at the store.
Right. And so you've got that shirt and you just tug on it because you're like,
Look
it
like
just
you're
doesn't
dancing because you can just
feel
keep twisting
right,
it around
right?
and moving it all day long, right?
And that's because it wasn't cut originally on the straight of grain. So it was slightly distorted. When you wash something or you get it wet, it is absolutely natural for the fabric to go back to a straight of grain. So when we distort our fabric this way, it might look great in the hoop.
Even after you've stitched it, it's still going to look beautiful. You're going to
Mhm.
be like, oh, I did such a great job. Look at
Right.
that beauty. And then you're going to pop the hoop.
Right. And it's going to spring back to its natural shape. And then you're going to have what we call reverse wrinkles. So now you have basically wrinkles around because the center was stretched and now everything around it wants to relax. And then, gosh forbid, you actually get it wet. Then you have something that looks like a crumbled mess.
As much as you want to do this to get that little pucker out, quite frankly, you're better off if it's up here and it's not got anything to do with where you're stitching, just leave it alone.
Right. It's not going to
Don't change anything. It's not going to do anything to your project. Now, if it's somewhere you're going to have, then you need to deal with it. But if
Right.
it's just a little guy on the side, just let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't stretch it.
Don't stretch it.
So if you have all of those puckers, simply pop it out, loosen that up again, realign everything, and just do it again. It really is, you know, none of us want to hoop all day.
No.
I mean, of course, right? I mean, that's like the last thing. This isn't to do it 20 times until you get it absolutely perfect, because there are very few things, unless you're literally aligning one design to the next,
Right.
that the minuscule amount that you're off is going to show.
Right.
So just do the best that you can and get it as close as possible. I like to hook in, if you will, one side and then kind of smooth everything out, make any adjustments so I can see I'm a little off center up here, and I can do a little bit of adjusting and then put it in.
The thing is that it's the first 10 times that you hoop is going to be really awkward. Like it's not going to feel like
it's not like anything you've ever done before.
Right. It feels weird. You're struggling and you're like, what? And then like on 11 or 12, you're going to be like, oh, I finally got it. Like it
I
just
understand.
clicks.
You know, so we all have probably our own little quirk.
Yep.
I like to use the heel of my hand. I like to hold one in and then I take the heel of my hand and I go around the outside.
Yeah.
Because I find that that's stronger. If I'm trying to use my fingertips, I tend to push.
Right.
And I'll flip. And then I end up screwing up my center somewhere. So the heel of my hand, I find I have a lot more control.
Yep.
That's just me. You know, you're going to find your own groove, but it's okay. Find your own groove. That's the whole point. So hooping is probably the biggest problem because people aren't doing it right.
Right.
One, you got to stabilize the whole hoop. So notice I don't have a section that doesn't have stabilizer.
Right.
I'm guilty of that. When I first started, nobody told me anything. And I was like, well, I even fused. I ironed it to where I was going to put whatever. But it was like, here's my design. That's where I put the stabilizer.
Right.
Now, looking back, I think, wow, you're really stupid, because how could you have thought that was going to work? Not that I'm calling any of you stupid. But for me personally, I laughed at myself when I found out how I was supposed to. I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Why didn't I think of that on my own? You know, I felt stupid. Not like, again, I'm not calling any of you stupid. I just was like, wow.
Yeah, the light bulb went off.
That was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Because I had puckers, but back then I was just like, you know, I'd compare it to what I'd buy at, you know,
at the store.
Guess what? They have puckers too.
Right, and
so
wash it once.
Exactly. So do make sure that you have stabilizer through the whole hoop.
Yep.
You have to have stabilizer. The type of stabilizer is going to depend on the project.
Yep.
We'll talk about that in another.
We have one quick question about the type of stabilizer. So Pam is asking, when do you use fusible no-show mesh?
So I have done a lot of decorating pre-made things, generally clothes. So a zip-up hoodie, a t-shirt, even a crew popover, or you know, something. Clothing is going to definitely be where I use that.
Right.
And it's going to definitely be a better choice than for instance, a standard cutaway.
Yep.
So standard cutaway looks like it's going to support way better, right?
Mhm.
It's heavier, it's thicker, it's that white, you can't see through it.
Right.
How could this stuff really
Really-
give me what I need,
Right.
right? The reason is how it was made.
Mhm.
And what we really like about it is that it is completely soft and flexible. If I go to see what did I get? Did I get lucky? Probably not. Oh, yes, that's close enough. So if I have something like this, it's papery and it's stiffer.
Mhm.
It's not going to move with your clothes or whatnot.
Right.
So you want something that's going to flow with the hand of the fabric that you're stitching on.
Yep.
And that's where the fusible no-show, because most clothes stretch.
Mhm. We have so
There's
much stretch
very,
and
very
everything.
few things that are out these days that don't stretch.
Right.
Even denim all has stretch in it now.
know.
You know, everything has stretch in it. So that will maintain the fabric where you're stitching. And then afterwards, if it has been fused, you just hit it with your iron again and then peel it back. And then you can just trim right alongside your design. So you don't have to have all that excess there forever.
Yep.
It's just there while you're stitching.
The other thing that's really nice about it is that it is that translucent and it's so thin. So when you trim it around the design when
You
you're
don't
finished,
get that heavy shadow.
right, you have, if you've bought something from the store, a lot of times you have like a distinct outline of where they
Your
trim
fabric
that
actually doesn't
around.
even lay down a lot of the times.
Right, it just kind of sticks up right in that spot. So
Yep. This
no
won't
show
do
mesh
that.
gives you a more, I would like to say, a better than professional look.
Absolutely, because most professionals from a bulk standpoint they're using either a cutaway or even a tearaway,
Yeah.
which I really don't recommend on clothes. But the that hand of that isn't going to change. So you'll still have that comfortable feel, but the strength is going to be there forever.
Right.
The fuse in it is maintaining the stretch so that it's not moving in the hoop while you're stitching on it.
Yeah.
That's where the fuse is coming in.
Mhm.
So pretty much anytime you're doing clothing, I'm going to recommend that this is what you're doing.
Yep, it does
Fuse
make a
it.
big difference.
If you can fuse it, use it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get a better result for sure. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes whatever you're doing, you're going to see the back and you don't want that to show and whatnot. So you're going to substitute in and you're going to make some concessions somewhere.
Right. Sometimes you can't heat your project or whatever.
Exactly. So there's always reasons that you can't.
There's always an
But if
exception.
you can, that is going to give you the absolute best result. And that is what I mainly use my fusible
Yes.
no-show mesh for. They also make it in a non-fusible,
And we use
which
that all
has
the
it
time.
in so many uses I can't begin
Yeah.
to go.
And
but-
so the second tip about fusing is that don't take two different types of fusibles.
Right.
And
Don't
try
layer.
to fuse them on top of each other. It doesn't work because oftentimes they're made from different materials or they don't have the same temperature. So it's really hard
Right.
to add
The
a second
fusible doesn't
fusible.
have the same reaction point.
Yeah.
So if you put Easy Tea on and then I fuse this over top of that, I'm going to probably have some spots that aren't completely fused somewhere in there.
Yep.
Could you get lucky and it work? Of course. But big picture, you're going to have empty spots of air
Yep.
or something where the two just didn't bond because of the different pressure points and heat points that you need in there.
Yep.
So if you really need 2 layers, use 2 layers of the same thing. But even with that, be cautious on too many.
Yeah.
Definitely don't go more than 2.
No.
Start float and tear away if that's the case. And has to, in my opinion, and Sarah's, be the same product.
Same product.
Sarah
yep.
doesn't do 2 no matter what, I don't think, for the most part.
No,
Clothing is the only thing that I have ever done 2 on.
Yeah, I know Lisa's not a fan of like using a spray.
I
would usually do 1 fusible, and then if I need another layer, I would just lightly spray
to keep on your
to keep the other 2 pieces or the 3
in place.
pieces in there. So
Yep.
Yep.
So beginning correctly is going to greatly increase your chances of finishing where you want to be.
Yes.
So there you go on our really quick.
Yeah, Nancy has a quick question here. Why would you need more than 1 layer? Sometimes
I have a huge
Right.
design.
sometimes the design, the quantity of stitches that you have, if we have a design
dense.
that is 4 inches by 4 inches and it has 3,000 stitches in it, no big deal, right? That's
One piece
hardly
is going to
any stabilizer.
no problem at all.
But if I have a 4 inch by 4 inch design that is 60,000 stitches,
Hold on to your pants. You're going to need some more.
Right.
It's just going, it doesn't matter how well you hooped it, that many needle punctures in that small of a space, one sheet of stabilizer is not going to
Right.
protect your fabric enough to be able to withstand that kind of a beating.
yes.
And that's really, I mean, think about it, 60,000 hits in a little 4x4 area. That's a lot of,
Right.
you know, how many times can you get punched in the face before you fall down?
Right.
No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. But
Don't try.
don't try and don't find out. I don't want to know the answer. Okay. But seriously, that is really what it is. If you have that same amount of space spread out into a 10 by 10,
Right.
I would still, with 60,000 stitches, I'd still probably use a second sheet. But
It also depends on the type of material
what
that
type
we're
of
using.
material am I using? Is
Right.
it blue jean or canvas, or is it just a simple piece of cotton?
Right.
So many different things are going to come into play.
Right.
But that is where the second piece comes in. When it comes to clothing, I like the hand of that no-show. So I don't personally, my second piece isn't generally a tearaway unless I know exactly what's going to happen in there. I
Right.
want to make sure that it's going to have that stability throughout however many washes that garment is going to have.
Right.
So I generally will do that, and I will take the first piece and it will be straight, which now I'm not straight, sorry, straight. And the second piece, I will do at a 45-degree angle and fuse both of them. And that is going to give me that extra strength to really help support that. But it's not going to change the hand of my garment
Right.
drastically, where if I were to put a heavy tearaway or that bulky, it, depending upon what kind of things that you're putting it on,
Right.
Cottons and things like that, jersey.
Yep.
I like that softer hand that you get from the no-show, which is why I would use 2 layers of that, and I
Right.
would fuse it to make sure that it stays where I want it.
So the goal is, when we're finished with our embroidery, that the garment or the project that we're putting it on lays flat and doesn't look like we've basically altered it.
Right.
We want it to be as flat and as perfect as it can be. A lot of times there just there isn't enough stability in a single layer of stabilizer to produce that result. Even if we and we've got all kinds of new products now that we didn't have before, with different starches and things like that that we can do. But many times we're adding, almost every time there's 2 layers of something, whether it be the first layer as starch, and
right.
then
It needs to have two hits of something, whether
Yes.
it's starch and your no-show in this case, or whether it is an easy tea. And there's
Yeah.
so many different things that are out there. It's just a matter of finding the right recipe for the best
Right.
result. And sometimes that is a hit or a miss thing. You get a weird fabric just because it worked on this shirt that I did 5 years ago.
Right.
They've changed how all of that stuff is made. I mean, what's included in what kind of fibers. And I mean, there's so many difference. And 2 things might be, okay, those are both the moisture wicking. That doesn't mean they're going to be the same result stitching, because
Right.
there's some very large variances in that too. So there is no super big category that you can just dump everything of this into this category and all of these go in. It unfortunately doesn't work like that.
No.
You do have to look at each project individually and say,
Yeah.
okay, what's going to get me the best result?
Right. And start thinking about the fabric, or the what it's actually going on. The a knit shirt versus a canvas bag. The fibers themselves are completely different. A knit shirt is not stable. So
Nope.
if
Canvas, on the other hand,
it's very stable.
you can take a much more of a beating, so it's going to need less help
Yeah.
to maintain its perfection when you're done.
Right. So your recipe of things that you use with it, they will vary drastically for the end result.
Right.
So we have basic stabilizers. We have a cutaway, which means that it stays with your project forever. We have a tear away, which means that we can tear the remainder of the stabilizer away. Some of them will stay underneath your project for a while. Some of them will eventually deteriorate. It will depend on the brand and the
And
style
the style that you
that you get.
choose. Yep.
And then we have washaways, which will completely wash away when you're finished, because you either A, don't need it,
Or don't want to see it.
or don't want to see it, and it's an appropriate design for
For
the
the-
fabric
for-
or the garment or the
Right. So
that-
here's
what it's
a
intended.
hard truth. And everything can't be done to perfection. There are some designs you just can't put on a super lightweight t-shirt and
Yeah.
have it hang and look like it was made to do that.
right.
Those super thin t-shirts, yeah, I'd love to put stuff on that too, but you got to do open and airy, and you can't put a really dense design. Just the weight of the thread
Really
is going to drag
distorts,
down and
yeah.
distort the way that it lies down on whoever's wearing it.
right.
Doesn't matter how well built they are, it's still not going to look good.
Right.
So some things just shouldn't be done. And it doesn't, there is no magical stabilizer that's going to make it work. You really have to, I always say, well, what's the end game? Where are we putting it, and what do you want it to be when you're done?
Yep.
Because that's how you then can back up and make sure you get all the right pieces to make that happen.
Right. So there's our little spiel about
All right.
why you might need more than one stabilizer. So let's talk about other things that help with our stabilizers, because we are smarter than we were 10 years ago, and we now know that using some other things in our projects can make a big difference. Essentially, when we're working with fabrics that are not stable, right, making them stiffer will really help them support our stitches. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to put something underneath there to stabilize our stitches. So some of these are our favorite products.
I'm trying to, there we go.
These are starch alternatives. You can certainly use starch. Some people love starch, some people hate starch. These are just slightly different versions that are not actually made from potato. And then we have Material Magic. This is the stiffest out of the 3 that we've now shown you.
This is like on steroids.
It is, yep. This kind of makes your fabric almost like paper.
Yes.
So super stiff.
Very, very good stability.
Yes.
For sure.
And then we have the Easy Tee that is right there. This is actually from kind of like the garment world. So this is actually an interfacing. So we're interfacing our fabric. So if we're doing quilts, if you're a Kimberbell fan or something like that, people they rave about Shape Flex SF
101. So we don't carry SF 101 here. Why don't we carry SF 101 here?
It's spotty. Is that a nicer way of saying that it's
not consistent?
It's not consistent.
So what is not consistent? The fuse on it is not consistent. So, I'm pressing. By the way, I'm not ironing. I'm pressing, right? And then I get all done, and I have this circle that you can see. It almost looks like a bubble in the middle. And that's because there's no consistent fuse throughout the entire item. And it definitely will, it'll show in some projects if that area isn't as well stabilized.
Yes.
Because that's what your fusing does, is give you more stabilization.
Right.
And Easy Tee is a pre-shrunk. It says so right on the package. Right. I'm trying to get, wow, that is super glared. I don't know if you can see that. There we go, maybe right there. Right at the bottom there, it says pre-shrunk. Why is that important?
Because we use water and starch, and some of you steam with your iron, and all of those things will affect
your fabrics and your stabilizer.
Yes. We did an entire video on
shrinkage.
Shrinkage, right? On preparing your fabrics for quilting or embroidery or whatever, where we talked about how our starching and and ironing and our fusing method. So we have like an entire video that is just on that things. It's not a huge long video, but it
No,
is
but that is what we literally
right.
focused on. Is we showed you, we measured it, we showed you, you know, what it was on camera, and then we
it.
spritzed it, and then pressed it, and came back and showed it to you again, and what that looked like, and so on and so forth. So you could see that difference and how much a difference that makes. It can be up to a 1/4 inch,
Or more, depending
sometimes
on,
even more,
yeah.
depending upon the fabric. So what you're doing to your fabrics and when you're doing it
Mhm.
is going to take a huge
Right.
bite into the quality that it's going to end up being.
Yep.
So the SF-101, we know you can get it in, you know, you can buy it by the bolt. You can get it pretty inexpensively. We get it. I mean, that is part of it. But we do definitely, I mean, everybody says it's not just you do get out what you put in.
Aw, Steph, thanks.
So,
yeah, it's funny, even the different fabric manufacturers. Like we did them from different
yes,
manufacturers.
different types. You know, they're
Shrink in.
all 100% cotton quilting fabrics,
Mhm.
but the difference from one, it's not consistent. So you can't plan for it because,
Right.
you know, it's not a plan. So it's definitely something to think about. And, you know, before you, if you buy a kit of something, what are you going to do with that? Are you just going to cut it and then go sew it?
Mhm.
Are you going to, you know, prep it? Are you going to wash it? What are you doing with your fabrics?
Yeah, what's the game?
What is the game plan? What is the end game?
Mhm.
Where are you going to go? And, you know, you got to back that out then to make sure that everything
Yep.
is going to fit into the places that you need it to be. So we definitely, I think both of us mostly use Best Press. You actually sometimes douse it
I do.
and
Sometimes
hang
I
it.
dunk in.
So we did talk about the hover in our video, and if you are spraying, you know, you don't want to just hit it with your iron right away when it's all wet because you can scorch your product and things like that. So we talked about hovering your iron
Yep.
over top and using that heat to, it'll steam. So you're going to get that shrinkage in there that's going to happen for you as
Yep.
that's happening. And then you'll be well prepped. What,
Right.
what do we got?
Steph says, I always spray my fabrics now and the results are much better. Embroidered for many, many years and didn't realize it. Great info. Yeah, it really does.
Yes. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I started it by accident. So I was working on a project and I cut like a 12-inch piece. It was for sashing. I cut the 12-inch piece and it had, I cut it on the fold. So it had a seam in the, or that
In the middle.
In the
Yep.
middle. So I took it over to my ironing board and I spritzed it with a little bit of water. I didn't even do anything. I didn't steam it, just spritzed it with a little bit of water. And then I turned around and I did something else. I came back and I went ahead and I ironed it and I brought it back to my project and it was 11 and a half. I did it 3 times. So, because I was like, well, maybe I used
Maybe
the
I
wrong
cut
end
wrong, or
of
maybe
my
I did,
ruler,
right.
You know, like maybe it was a, I thought it was a 12
It was a 1
inch.
1/2, or it was a 12 and a half, and you
Right,
thought it was a
right.
12, or
3
yeah.
times. On the 3rd time, I sprayed it and I watched it and it went, and I was like, oh, this makes so much sense.
Light bulb. You know? So it definitely matters. Neither of us actually put water in our irons.
No.
So we both have a spray bottle of water and a spray bottle of starch. So depending upon what it is that you're trying to do, I have not had to buy a new iron. I have, because that one's prettier than the one that I currently
But we
was
didn't buy-
using.
but we didn't
But I
kill
didn't
it.
have to. It wasn't because my iron
Right.
wasn't working. It was just a choice.
Yep, I stopped killing my
But
iron.
they will not last as long if you put water in them. Even if they're designed, you know, they start leaking. You start having issues, and that's because of the water that was, a lot of the times anyway, that the water that was in there. So you can get the exact same results by spritzing and hovering, and what you can do all of those things without actually having to put water in your iron. So
that's number 1.
that's a little thing
Yeah.
there. So we definitely, one more time, it's by Heat and Bond Easy Tea. It does come in 2 different size pieces. You can get a 14-inch by 25 feet, or you can get a 60 by 72 piece. They're both
They have the same square inches.
the square inch is going to be the same. It's just going to come in a different way.
Yeah.
I know you like the bigger one for a lot of your projects, depending upon what it is that you're doing. I like the 14-inch because it's kind of like it's on a roll. It's just flat folded, and it works really well for the kinds of things that I use it for.
Yeah.
So they make it in 2 different ways because we all do different things. So, but it's a great, great product. And again, it's pre-shrunk, which is great.
Yeah.
So
And it's got a really even fuse
very
to it,
even fuse
which
to it.
is really,
Absolutely.
really fantastic and much appreciated if you've ever struggled with any other version. Bless you.
So now we have fabric that is hooped right and it is well prepared before we even put it in the hoop. So that should take out actually a very large bulk of problems.
Yes.
So some other things that we have here are just going to be some little things that we use to make our life easier.
Like our favorite tools
Yep.
that we go to over and over and over again. So
yes.
And all of these things are available on our store. So if
I'm
you
sure
go
that
to
shocks all
stitching
of
at
you.
labusewingcenter.com, you can find any of those things. And if you can't find it for some strange reason, you can just pop
Just
us
give
an
us-
email.
Yep.
And,
or give us a call and
or
we'll
give us
take
a call.
care. We'll take care of
and
you.
we
Absolutely.
can take care of it that way. Yes.
So before we get into tools, let's just talk about these guys just a little bit. There is an absolute wonderful thing here. They created embroidery needles.
Yes.
We carry them in 2 different brands. This is the Classe A. We also carry Schmetz.
Yes.
And they are both very good quality. There's not like well, this one's better than this one. You definitely want that. Even the pricing, sometimes a specific type is cheaper in one than it is the other.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Class A, you get like 6 needles for about the same price that you get 5. So it's a tad bit.
It's just a little bit less expensive in embroidery, anyways, to buy the Class A's. But you know, they're equal quality.
Yes.
So literally, it's which ones do you like. So your needles are very important. Changing your needle is very important. So make sure that you're not using it. When you call us and you say you've gotten this big rat's nest and it started shredding and you've got this whole thing going on, the first question we're probably going to ask you is, when's the last time you changed your needle? Because that is the most common reason that happens.
Yep.
The answer should not be, I'm still using the one that came with my machine. Unless you bought it yesterday. that shouldn't be the answer, all right? So needles are very, very important. Change them often. You can get a lot of problems with a bad needle. They cost generally $1 or less versus maybe a bobbin case that's going to have to be replaced. That's going to be $30 to $45 to replace in Brother and Baby Lock. And if you're in another brand, God forbid, those are even more expensive for something that you could have fixed by changing out that needle. So definitely change often. And I don't know. I don't even save them anymore. Like if I'm changing types, I used to try to save them and mark, okay, this one is.
And I only use it for this amount of time.
I only used it this amount, so it's still good. I don't even do that anymore. I just chuck it.
Yeah.
So it's just not worth trying to remember. So we also have some little bit of different threads here. The other thing we didn't bring over was bobbin thread. We probably should talk about just to make sure. Oh, thank you. That's great. So this is our absolute favorite metallic thread. This runs like butter. It is just like your standard threads.
So we should start out the thread thing about, okay, we know we sound like thread snobs, but not all threads are created equal.
They really aren't, guys.
You would be surprised at how bad thread can make an entire project be like, I think I want to throw this machine out.
Or I don't want to embroider anymore. Yes. That was such a pain. I'm out.
Never doing it again.
I'm not doing that anymore.
You think it's your machine or you.
So some of you, apologies ahead of time, may have heard this before. When I started, I bought a kit of really pretty colors. It had variegated, came in a case. So I'm like, this is great. They won't be rolling all over the place. And I bought it on the internet.
Yep.
I don't even know what brand it is, to be perfectly frank. It came in a box. It was great. It was very pretty. And back then I was embroidering on a 4x4 machine whose top speed was like 600, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe even less back then, because that was just a hot second ago. And it broke. I had thread breakage, but I was able to complete projects. And then I decided I was going to upgrade, and I bumped to an 8x12 size machine, which is much bigger and stitches at 1,000 stitches a minute. Well, I continued to do what I was doing before.
Right.
And I couldn't get a project to finish. I mean, it was just shredding pretty much 100% of the time.
Yep.
I brought that machine back and I said, what in God's name did you sell me? I can't get this thing to do a darn thing.
Right. And I know how to embroider because I've been doing it.
I've been doing this. I'm doing the same things I was doing before. I don't understand, help me, right? Well, he popped the front off and he looked at it and he goes, my God, Lisa, what have you been putting in this thing? And I'm like, same stuff I was using before. And he looked at me and he said, you were driving an Escort. Now you're driving a Corvette. You got to use better gas. And I went, that made sense to me. Where's the good stuff? And I went home with, I think, 100 spool box of, because
different brand.
Nobody said that this hobby was inexpensive.
No.
But there is an absolute difference between things. We've all been there.
Yes.
All right. All of us have been there.
Yes.
We bought it because it was pretty, or and we decided we're going to suffer through it because I really want that thread in whatever, or whatever it happens to be. But there really is a difference.
Right.
There absolutely is a difference.
Yes. So a couple questions here. This one was about needles. So when using any of the fusible, do they gum up the needle? Fusible batting, fusible stabilizer, easy T. I have not experienced any of my fusibles gumming up the needles. The only thing that typically gums up my needles is if I have used a little bit of that spray adhesive or if I've used like a glue stick for any reason. And I do keep alcohol pads, like the little ones that you tear off, like for the medical thing, in my drawer.
You
and
clean your needle up.
I do. When I'm using something like that, every time I change my needle, I like swipe down, or not change my needle. Every time I change my thread, before I hit the needle threader, I do just swipe that
just get
a little bit.
any residue off to make sure that
it makes a big difference overall. And really, then you won't get any residue hanging out.
Right.
And it's not enough.
I very rarely, as we said, use spray,
Yes.
but I do use sticky for different things.
Sticky,
Sticky wash away is much
stickier,
gooier, for lack of a better word, than the tearaway. So you may want to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing there.
And then Jackie is asking about Bro Thread mat. Have used it. Is it new? So
it sounds like it comes from Brother, right?
It's not.
But it's not, unfortunately.
I think that whether or not the Bro Thread is going to work for you is really going to depend upon the machine that you're using. My experience with that style of thread is that if you are stitching on for Brother and Baby Lock, and this probably goes true for like Berninas because they tend to be a little bit more finicky, just because of their tensioning system. When you are on an embroidery machine that is probably bigger than a 6x10,
you'll have issues.
You're probably going to have issues, and that is partially because the larger your hoop, your machine is capable of, the faster your machine is going to stitch. And those threads don't tend to be as strong. And the reason that they're not as strong and the reason that they can be as inexpensive as they can, I went deep down dive on threads one time.
Yeah, you did a thread
I was
class.
Like, down
she did.
the rabbit
she
hole I
like,
went.
Did you know? And I'm like, no, oh my.
So what I learned about how thread manufacturers like make their threads, there's no like governing body that like goes through and says, hey, if your thread is 40 weight, it needs to match
meet this.
They don't. They let the individual manufacturers determine what is the weight of their thread. So a good quality thread, when they go to create it, will have huge, really long strands of thread that they basically twist. And that's how they create their thread. Now, if you have ever taken like a towel and you've twisted the towel, right? If it starts out to be this big, right, on the screen, and then you do a couple of twists and then it goes in. But the more you twist, the shorter the string becomes. So the more expensive thread has taken the same sizes and they shrink it down, right? So that they twist the thread more, which costs more because now it takes more thread to create the same
Amount of
amount
distance.
of distance. And so a 1,000-meter spool of thread from somebody that uses long staple, poly or cotton or whatever strands, longer strands, will be more expensive than somebody who uses shorter
The short
the
staple.
shorter pieces. Yes.
Yep.
So that is the real truth about thread. And there is sometimes a right time and a wrong time. I probably would
Brother
not
10 needle.
put
Probably not.
right. You might be okay if you slowed the
Slowed it
machine down, but I don't know that I would run that at full speed. And the darker the thread, the more it sat in a dye, so it already
It's more
becomes
brittle.
more brittle.
Right.
So you could have the best thread in the world, and if it's black, it might still be
It
just
still might give you some fits here and there.
some fits. So
Yep.
that's really the truth about thread, and that is why we talk about a higher quality thread versus lesser quality threads. If you can like tie a knot in that thread and tug on it, and it doesn't take a whole lot to break the thread, then you know that it's not going to take a whole bunch of
For it to snap in
tugging
your
for it to
machine.
snap in your machine.
Yep.
And that's just the nature of the beast.
So in my right hand here, which I guess it kind of looks right over to you guys too.
This one.
This one, I have bobbin thread. This one has a green, minty green cap. The other two are clear caps. The minty green is 90 weight bobbin thread.
Mm-hmm.
This was designed for our embroidery only machines. You get a spool when you buy that machine. It's very different than the 60 weight, and the bobbin cases that are in your machine are set for that when you take it out of the box.
Yeah.
So 90 weight is for embroidery only machines, and the 60 weights, which we do have both in black and in white, are for your combo machines.
And we're talking
So,
flatbed.
Flatbed embroidery.
Our multi-needles, they are
We
basically
generally just do a
pre-wound.
pre-wound thing, and that's a different
That's
matter.
different, yes.
Thread can come in just your standard. We've got fine line, which is a lighter weight yet. So standard are 40. These are 60. And then we already briefly talked about the metallics. So thread is, there's a lot of variance in there.
Standard embroidery thread is typically 40 weight.
Yes.
And you can get it in cotton, you can get it in poly, you can get it in rayon.
We carry,
I think that's it.
yes, at this moment, at this time
Right.
in the world, those are what you have out there.
Right.
We carry poly embroidery thread.
Mm-hmm.
We do have some cotton threads, which you could embroider with, but they're not technically embroidery thread.
Right.
So all of our embroidery thread is poly,
Yeah.
just FYI.
So like the most common brands are poly. You've got Floriani, you've got Exquisite, Glide, Metler, Isocord. All of those are a poly based, and they are all 40 weight. Madeira thread is also very common and very popular. That one, they do have some poly, but a lot of theirs is rayon. And then Aurifil is very popular, and that is cotton.
So I know we're at 4:30, so we're going to go real quick through these other guys here. Where are you going?
I was going to go, do you want to go
Yeah,
here? It's a little
that's
easier
great.
to see.
So this is a stiletto. All right, you can use this for sewing as well. It has a nice sharp tip, but you've got a handle that you can hang on to. Why do I use a stiletto? Well, I use it for putting my binding on because my friend over here taught me that that's definitely the way to do that. However, you can use that if you are a little afraid to put your hands in your hoop as things are happening. So
Which
sometimes
you should be afraid of putting
you
your
should be,
hand in
and
there.
you should definitely be careful. Absolutely. I, on the other hand, am an idiot, and I just throw them in there for everything. But the stiletto will work if you're trying to hold a piece of fabric in position or smooth it out or whatnot as something stitching. Your stiletto will work.
Right.
And it's nice and small, so you can keep it in without, out of the way of the needle.
Do as we
and
say,
things.
not as we
So
do.
a stiletto is definitely a tool. We've got this guy here looks like that in the package, and then this one's just got a little bit bulkier handle.
Yeah, we also have some larger handle ones depending
we
on
do.
what's comfortable in your
But
hand.
the tip on the larger handles is also larger, so it's kind of balances out there too. So whatever's more comfortable for you. This is something we didn't really get a chance to really talk about, but our USB ports on our machines, because that is kind of the go-to now.
Yeah.
It has been, we've seen people, my USB's not reading.
Right.
So if you start off with one of these, it will elongate the life because you're not in and out of your port on the side of your machine. So basically, this is an extension cord for a USB port. So you can maybe kind of see that is where you would put the USB, and then that is what you would plug into your machine. So you would just leave it plugged in, and then you would just move that in and out of the extension cord. So this particular, it's called a pigtail. A lot of people are like, what the heck is a pigtail?
Yeah.
But that is an extension cord for your USB, and it definitely can elongate the life of your port.
Yes.
And help you with not having
Yes.
as many reading issues.
It will not elongate the life of your USB stick, though.
No,
there
it will
aren't many
not.
things in life that we can
USB
guarantee.
sticks are temporary transfer devices, not storage devices.
Right. They should be called a temporary device.
They really, really should. These are turning tools. You could also use this in your hoop if you wanted to kind of smooth things out, but these are fantastic for all of the projects and in the hoop things when you're turning something to give you the ability to get that nice sharp point.
Yep.
So turning tools are also super important.
And number one, Lisa's favorite.
My favorite scissor is technically this guy, but we are out at the moment. We've got them on order. So here's a different colored version of that.
Yeah.
But having the right scissors for the job is absolutely going to make your life better. So these are a 6-inch double curve. My favorite are the Femore, but I have other pairs and I definitely use them as well. These are more about the tip than anything else. And I don't know, I should have grabbed an actual pair. Did I grab it? I did grab an actual pair. So that is the tip. I don't even know if,
Yep.
There we go. That is a precision tip tweezer right there. You can grab hold of a little piece of thread. You can grab hold of fabric, whatever.
Yeah.
But having a good pair of tweezers, there's a lot of bad tweezers out there, guys. You know that, right?
Yep.
These are absolutely.
These will not work for like plucking a hair, but they're gonna grab.
They're gonna grab your thread and things phenomenally well. So tweezers, the precision tip tweezer is definitely the way to go. And then this one kind of goes with this one. So having an iron that will fit inside of, say, your 5x7 hoop. I think this would even fit in a 4x4, but I don't ever use my 4x4 anymore. But the mini iron will allow you to get that nice smooth fold of fabric and things. If you don't have electricity by wherever you're, if you're going somewhere that you're not going to have that, this is a wonderful, wonderful tool. It's a fabric folding pen. This you basically just fill with liquid. This is concentrated starch. This literally works, especially if you use it in conjunction with a seam roller. It gives you pretty much exactly like a pressed, iron pressed fold. It is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So depending upon the types of projects that you're doing, if you're doing paper piecing or even quilting in the hoop, folded fabric techniques, this is definitely a great thing.
Yep.
And we might start using this here with our new little setup that we've got over here. I cannot find center today. I'm so sorry, guys. This is a actual lit magnifying. It's great. I have one at home, and it works really, really great. It is actually powered by a USB, and it has a clamp so that you can put it on the edge of your table or whatever. I have clamped it to some odd things, and it's a little harder to use. Definitely recommend a table, but this is a wonderful, wonderful tool. It will give you some more light and also, of course, make something bigger so you can see it.
Yep.
So all of these kinds of things are definitely going to make your embroidery life a little bit
questions
easier.
Here. So if you have, I know we've ran a little bit over, but if you have other questions, we're gonna answer a couple.
Yeah,
things,
absolutely.
Pop them up in there. Nancy wants to know what was the name of the thread you said was the best.
Did we say that?
We probably didn't say the best.
So I said the best metallic.
Yes.
I did say that, and that there is an actual answer to that question. This is King Star. It's made or produced by Dime.
Yes.
And this is wonderful. They've just come out with some 4 newer colors in the last little bit. and it runs like butter, just like your regular threads.
Yeah.
It is absolutely the best metallic thread out.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. As far as other best, we carry Exquisite, we carry Floriani, we carry Metler. We currently still carry Brother. All 4 of those are very good quality threads. There's a lot of good quality thread out there. It's just a matter of, I would say that other shops are like us, and that if they don't like it, they're not going to carry it. So if you're buying from a quilt or embroidery store like us, I would think that you're probably safe in what you're buying. If you're buying online or at Joann's, maybe not so much.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, there, you know, if you have a local shop to you, buy whatever thread they're selling, because most people, us included, we wouldn't use something if we sell you a product that is not good. You are going to
Not be happy.
not be happy.
We don't want that.
That just, I mean, contrary to what popular belief, right? The goal for us is to not make people mad.
Tony's cracking over that.
We want you to be happy, because if you're happy, then you're nice to us when you come in. And if you're nice to us, then it is much easier for us to be nice to you. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're happy, we're happy. So when you're angry, it doesn't help us at all.
It doesn't.
So it
And,
really,
you know, we want you to go home and succeed. That's the goal.
Yes.
That's why we do things like this, is showing you the things and the tips and the things to make that better.
right.
We certainly, and I can't imagine other shops. Yeah, I mean, yes, there's the business, I want to make money, whatever, but you're not going to make money if you turn people away because you sold
they
them
never
crappy
want to
stuff.
buy the other
So,
thread. So yeah. Or whatever.
anything that you get here is going to be great quality.
Yeah.
And I would assume that other shops would have that same philosophy, as far as they're not going to carry an inferior product because they don't want to make you mad either.
Right.
So,
if your local shop is not like that, then
you know where to find us.
We'll be your local shop.
Absolutely.
We
Be
can
happy to.
Yes.
More than happy to.
Hi, Cindy from Tulsa. And can you do a segment on storing designs? I was storing mine on USBs. Yeah, we can definitely
you
put
bet.
that out there. We kind of have this month and next month already planned out. But
We're
I
actually
will.
ahead of the game.
I know, right? Because next month is National Quilting Month, so we have a whole bunch of stuff
Prepared for
talking
that.
about for that.
But yeah, we
So,
absolutely can.
Yep, I will add that to my list of topics to talk about.
Absolutely. And as far as slowing down your machine, did we actually
Oh, I
say
missed
how to
that
do
one.
that?
Nope.
In the settings of your machine, so if you're on a Brother or a Baby Lock machine, if you put push the settings button, which is looks like a piece of paper. It's got like 3 lines on it, and the top right corner is turned down. That's what it looks like. You tap that. Depending upon what mode you're in, it might not come right up, but you can scroll through the pages just by pushing the page number at the bottom, and you'll see right there it says the speed. All speeds have a default, which is going to be full speed ahead, which is what we both sew on all the time. If you have a special thread that you need to make that adjustment for, you can lower that down. Machines are going to run from roughly 650 to 1,050 as a highest possible speed, but you can slow it all the way down to like 200 stitches a minute if you're really needing to. If you have a multi-needle, it's actually right on the embroidery screen. You don't have to go anywhere to find it. It's right up front. You can actually adjust it while it's sewing, which is kind of cool.
Yes. And if you have a Brother or Baby Lock and you have that slide speed dial on the front, it
Nothing to
doesn't
do with embroidery.
work for embroidery. So you could turn it all the way down, and it is still going to go.
Still going to keep doing its thing.
I really don't know why that can't be. If it works in sewing, why it doesn't work in there. I know a lot of brands also their slide speed control works for both.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sewing and embroidery.
Maybe in some future version.
Yeah, you never know. So, I think we got all of the questions answered. So I think that is it.
There's something on my tongue. It won't come out. Well, I think I got it. Okay. I'm like, something's wrong here. Sorry about that. I'm like,
right.
"Nip, nip, nip." All right. So sorry we went a little bit over. Hopefully we answered all of your questions, and this maybe took a little bit of stress out of what am I going to do to
Yep.
get started.
Next week, we're going to push the buttons.
We are going to push some buttons,
Mhm.
hopefully not each other's. So we will see you there.
I got all week to practice.
All right. So we will see you then. Stay tuned for a really cute little commercial. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, thanks for hanging. We
Yeah.
will see you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.
Share.
I always forget to share.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Pushing.
Square.